My regular congregation is leaving. I'm the director of the kids ministry, if you didn't know.
She is.
And so Cadence is my first cousin once removed. If you don't believe me, I'll argue with you about it. I studied it very intensely. I know how that works down to the T. But also she's one of my UWC kids, and so I was like, well, I don't have to preach. One of my UWC kids did. But what a beautiful testament on Mother's Day to Bree.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
That's not by mistake. That Cadence came out that way. I'm trying to take a little credit with UWC kids, but really it was Blake and Bree. Anyway, so a good service on a special day should apply to all, but also be balanced by a little of the actual subject matter, which is mothers. So I'm going to start by actually just honoring moms a little bit today, and then I'll go into the part that applies to everyone. So if I can have the first slide. There are moms way worse than you. This is just to uplift you moms. Irrefutable proof that you are indeed a fantastic parent. Slide 2, please. A mom giraffe is pretty nice until the fetus drops. She'll birth a newborn baby calf, then kick him till he walks. I'm better than that. That's okay. Slide 3. Whenever you feel guilty that you haven't cleaned the house, Sexton beetles raise their kids in a decomposing mouse. I also feel so bad about my little bit messy house right now. Okay, slide 4. Panda moms are perfect, unless they're blessed with 2. Twins are hard, so they'll ditch one. It's terrible. It's true. Slide 5. I just really want you guys to feel better about being a mom today. For dinner time, a koala mom will feed her kids her poop. Remember that when you feel bad for giving your kids fast food. Slide 6. All right, I'm really bad at pronouncing names, and I studied how to, so if I say this wrong, please correct me. If a quackamom, actually I think it's how it's said, quackamom comes face to face with dingoes in the wild, guess what she'll do to get away? That's right, she'll toss her child. Forget you, I'm surviving. And then the last, not the last one, the 7th one. Oh man, Alaskan plovers, they don't even fake it like they care. 1 month after giving birth, first class Hawaiian Air. And then slide 8. Well, we had to bring the dads in on this, so. It's not just moms, some dads suck too. They're not all warm and snuggly. A piperfish dad will eat his kids if he thinks that they're ugly. You can take the slides down for now, thank you. There you go. I just wanted you to know you're an amazing mom, all right? Just get that book. There was more of them. As I was getting ready for the service today, I decided to buy this jacket because I thought, okay, if I get pointy shoulders, maybe they'll take me seriously. But no, really, I only minister from things that I have lived, that I have walked through. I'm never going to share something with you because theologically it makes sense or anything like that. I'm not that kind of a minister. I'd rather preach to you from what I've actually lived. And so whenever I prepare for sermons, I'm always looking for the thing that God's done in my life, and I want to minister out of that. I think theological talking and exploring Scripture is beautiful, but it's not really my forte. So I want to talk today about the spirit of a mother. It says there's neither male nor female in heaven. So motherhood is actually a spirit. You can have a baby and never be a mother. You can never have had birth a child out of your body and be a mother. It's a spiritual encounter. And I actually had my spiritual encounter of becoming a mother before I had my kids. It was when my sisters and I are in the room for all of our births. And so the very first birth, which was Ava, so fitting, she's graduating, or graduated yesterday, which is my heart. And after she was born, so I went through a very dark season. If you don't know me very well, most people do, but I went through a very, very dark season of my life, and I had walked away from just pretty much everything. I still had God in my heart, but it wasn't a live relationship. It was a relationship I was holding on to that wasn't producing any life. So to me, it was a dead religion I was holding on to. It was experiences that I knew were real. But they were good. I mean, they kept me hooked because I knew that I had experienced things. But I did a lot of dastardly things back then. But one thing is I loved smoking, and I used to smoke. And when Ava was born, the next day I went to work, and I had my cigarettes in my bag, and I just could not stop thinking about Ava's birth. And at that moment, the spirit of motherhood came on me. And I looked at the cigarettes, and I was like, no, I want to see the rest of Ava's life. And it was like I didn't care about living until that day. I didn't care. But when the spirit of motherhood came on me, I threw them away, and that was it. Like, I just was like, no, I don't want nothing to do with this. And but like every Mother's Day, I give my mom flowers, and I give my sisters flowers. And it seems like, oh, that's so sweet, you give your sisters Mother's Day flowers, but really, I do that to honor them because motherhood, I'm honoring the women who made me become a mother. And so my mom, obviously, she was a beautiful example of motherhood to me. And then my sisters had children before me. And so when I stepped into motherhood, I said to my mom one day after I had Lucas, I was like, why do I feel like I don't relate to all the first-time moms? And she's like, because this is your sixth child, because it was the sixth grandkid. We were there for every birth. I heard all the hardships. I was there helping them if they needed help. And she's like, this is your sixth baby. And I realized I never walked through that season like most people do. And so I like to honor my sisters because I didn't face those struggles because they led the way for me into motherhood. I grew within motherhood after that, but that's what brought the spirit of motherhood was Ava. And so I think in life, we all want these big moments of, it's almost like as Christians, we think we've failed, or even as parents, we feel like we've failed if we haven't had these big, amazing signs, wonders, and miracles. They should absolutely be a part of your life, but if you actually look through the Bible, there's more times where God did things in a slow, steady pattern than he did things all at once.
Right. Uh-huh.
All at once happens, but that's not the goal. Actually, the most powerful force that you will ever learn in life is how to do it slow. Yeah. Because we all want fast results. We're all social media age. We all want instant gratification. Our dopamine levels are like off the charts. Like we get satisfied by nothing anymore because we have so much dopamine hitting our system constantly that I highly suggest you do a dopamine detox. Go in the woods, spend a couple days there, nothing. Your only fun is going for a walk. Don't bring sugar. Ask me how I know about dopamine. And one of the greatest examples of this is the most powerful things God ever did throughout history were always slow. They weren't instantaneous. When Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, God did not immediately put Jesus on the earth. So when you're facing hard times and you're like, where is God? Why isn't he showing up? Jesus didn't show up right away. It was a steady diligence over time that each person made a decision to listen, be obedient, have a child in the season that it was supposed to come. Abraham and Sarah, they fought for a baby for years. I went through infertility. Ask anyone who went through infertility. You feel like God has abandoned you. Like, that's the fight that I am a woman. I am supposed to be able to produce life, and I can't produce it. And, but think it was you said to me about Lucas, it was about a certain seed. And if you've ever had any interaction with Lucas, he's a certain seed. The kid he is so funny, and I cannot wait to see what happens with his life because I want the slow. Yeah. I want the slow. My favorite quote of motherhood is, the days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that is cool.
so but don't lower your, we want instant expectation, but we forsake the small journey. So where do we put our faith? And honestly, I think the best place we can ever put our faith is in both. Yeah. Do not limit your faith to the instantaneous. Don't limit your faith. Leave your spirit open for the instantaneous. But until that instantaneous comes, just start with the small things. When I turned 30, which is crazy because I'm only 29, so I don't know how I could have turned 30. I'm just kidding. I'm really not that sensitive about my age. I'm 37 if you want to know. When I turned 30, the greatest revolution that ever hit my life then. My whole childhood, teenage years, 20s, I could not wait to be 30. I was like, 30s? That's when life, I am officially a woman. I will be diligent, and I will be all these things that I have fought and struggled for my entire life, is to be a functioning member of society. If you don't know me, I was diagnosed, it was irrefutable that I had ADHD when and my whole life. And thank God for my parents, they did not medicate me, though that would have been way easier on them. But the more you understand about those things, the more I realize, I don't know, it's scary to me to put kids on medication that young, but I'm so glad that they didn't. And the world will tell you, oh, you have ADHD, you will never be these things. The things that I fought, clawed. I always had a good heart, but I never could overcome because I was dealing with this deficiency in my brain, which now they're, changing all the terminology of that. But, and I got to 30, and I was like, well, nothing's changed. Not much. I was late all the time. I was I don't know, really there and working too late, and then I had no balance of any kind. And the world's definition of ADHD is that this is all you'll ever be. You can never overcome this. Maybe with medication and whatever you can get by. And at 30 years old, the decision I made that was the most powerful thing I ever did was I laid down trying. I was like, this is what I am. And I just have to learn to work around it. I could never be on time. So what I did, I stopped trying to get up early. That never worked. So, okay, instead, God was like, just set everything out the night before. I just started involving God. Just set everything out the night before, down to literally, if you have to clean your ears with a Q-tip, put that on the counter. And the days that I did this, I was on time every time. The days that I forsook one thing, I failed. And I never left the house on time. But what I did is I turned on something in my life, which was I laid down this physical thing of trying to push out who I was. But the truth always reverberated within me, which is, how can ADHD be my defining line of who I am? Because if you look at the scripture, it says that we should exhibit the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit directly go against symptoms of ADHD. So what am I? Am I what the world has categorized me as? Or have I decided to take on the truth of who I am? And really, if you've ever been diagnosed with ADHD, if you know anyone who's diagnosed with it, all ADHD is, I'm just going to help you. All it is, you have a spiritual gift and you have trauma. And you just need to heal that trauma. You will move through life maybe a little bit different than people who are neurotypical, but ultimately, you have a spiritual sensitivity, and no one has cultivated that in you, and it's wounded. And so when I turned on that trickle of just accepting myself for who I was, because the Bible says, come as you are. We're trying to perfect ourselves in the flesh. Meanwhile, Jesus is like, God and Jesus are like, that's not what we told you to do. So, like with remove ADHD, let's just talk about social pressure. Being a mom there's so much social pressure and Pinterest and on social media and everything to be this like perfect person. And we feel like we fail. And like if you look at anything on social media, these moms, you're like, I fail, auto fail, auto fail. But we need to like remove that pressure. No, this is the mother that I am. Okay, this is, God says, come to me as you are. Come to me, you who weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. If motherhood, you feel like you're failing at it, be like, this is who I am, God. Help guide me on how to set up my life for who I am. But never lay down the identity of Christ. Never settle in your soul for less than who you are. And so these are the things that like I started to do, and unknowingly until the last couple years, as I meditated on like, wow, how did I get here? But also, what is a mother? So a mother, by definition, is someone who we would, like, even if you look up mother in like the dictionary, it'll say 3 things, and the 3rd thing is finally when it gets to birth. Like, that's not even the primary thing of motherhood. And people would be like, well, motherhood is when you have life inside, you produce life inside of you, and you birth it out of your body. Okay, well, or not even, because let's just say you produce life. But what about your cells? Your cells regenerate, they produce life. So that can't be the defining thing that's a mother, because we all have cells that regenerate and bring new life. You'd be dead if you didn't have cells that regenerated. So when I'm talking about motherhood, with all of this, I'm talking about the spirit of motherhood. When you have a ministry in church, you have to take on a mothering spirit in order to cultivate that thing into what it should become. And so the message just applies to everyone. It's like if a husband and wife have children together, and the wife something happens to her, and the husband is left, and he has small children who need that spiritual mother, is God just going to leave them there? No, He has grace for every situation. Absolutely, the spirit of motherhood can come over that father to be all things in all seasons to those children, because that's what God is, and we are created in His image. And so, with this, I just wanted to say that before I go into the rest, so that you don't, limit yourself. You're like, oh, I'm not a mom. No, that's not how this works. Motherhood is a spirit. So here it is. This is where the rubber meets the road of turning on this diligence in your life, which is you have to, if you take an Olympic-sized pool full of water, and water is the change, like when you're trying to change something in your life, and you dump it on a mountain, will it ever change the foundation, the structure of that mountain? No. You just dump that. That's like all of us with motivation. Like we take a great effort and we dump a whole bunch of motivation on a situation. But it doesn't do anything. It might change the surface level for a moment, but it'll just grow back and go right back to what it was. But if you turn on a steady trickle of water, do you know that steady trickle of water can go right through the center of that mountain? It's the steady consistency. And so when you turn on something in your life and you try to change something, if you can just start with a little thing, just a little motion, something that you know you can do every day, something you know you can honor on a consistent basis. Does this sound familiar? Faith as small as a mustard seed can move a mountain. And as you turn on that little thing in your life that you need, you can turn it on more and more and more. And diligence in all these areas creates a flow that can create the Grand Canyon. But you have to start with the trickle. And it's consistency over time. All right, if I put a rock in the center of the room, and I said, all right, put the trickle over here, here's this rock over here, here's a chisel and a mallet. This water, it would take a long time to create that hole. Like a super long time. But that hole would be so smooth. as though the rock was always formed that way. Whereas if you made that same hole with a chisel and a mallet, it would be broken and rough. So when we try to pound law, it creates rough edges. It creates unnatural things, unnatural change. When you do it with the drip, the consistency, you create this smooth, beautiful thing that just flows one into the other. And you always thought that it was there. So faith is small as a mustard seed. A mustard seed is so tiny. And what I think is wild about a mustard seed in relation to this and in relation to Mother's Day is a woman's egg in her ovary is like the size of a pencil dot. So it's actually like very similar size-wise. And so isn't it amazing that that was the representation God used as something very similar to the seed of a woman? And when you have a baby, that's what it starts out as. Faith, as small as a mustard seed, produces a person who can move mountains. So don't forsake the small thing. That is where God, he resides in the small diligence every single day. And within that diligence, huge things will happen in a moment when you're living in that diligence. Okay. Mark 12:24. The woman who gave 2 mites. Mites back then were the smallest coin used at that time. They were the smallest form of currency. And Jesus was blown away by her giving, by the smallest thing, because all she did was give what she had. And I'm really trying to get in. I just feel like everyone is so consumed with huge changes. Like, oh, I want to lose weight. I'm starting tomorrow. I'm working out every day, 2 hours a day, never eating a carb again, and you fail. Because that is not a God principle. If you wonder why you're failing at weight loss, if you wonder why you're failing at being a better mother, being a better father, being a better minister, being a better attendee of church, it's because you're trying to make too big of jumps too quick. So we're going to go to Matthew 25:14. The parable of the 3 servants. So Matthew 25, starting in 14. At the time, the kingdom of heaven will be like this. Once there was a man who was about to leave home on a trip. He called his servants, put them in charge of his property. He gave each one according to his ability. Listen, he gave each one according to his ability. To one, he gave 5,000 gold coins. To another, he gave 2,000. And to another, he gave 1,000. Then he left on his trip. Some of you in life are looking at other people's life and being like, if I had what they had, I could be where they are. And what you count things as unfair. You always look at yourself as a victim. So listen to what this is saying. According to their own ability. So there's an ability difference between us. God may give more to someone because they have a greater ability off the bat when they're born. Like if Ava and I were born at the same day, I would never be able to accomplish as much as her. There's a greater ability within her. And that's not something I should feel jealousy over. That's a lie of the enemy. No, I'm going to be diligent with what was given to me. And Ava had to be diligent with what's given to her. Okay? So then he left on his trip. 16. The servant who had received 5,000 coins went at once and invested his money and earned another 5,000. So remember, God, like in this story, the master knew who would be diligent and entrusted the most to that one. So if you feel like you're not being entrusted with a lot, God knows that there's a lack of diligence in you. Just be diligent with what he gave you, and then you'll see what happens. Yeah. Once he invested his money and earned another 5,000. 17. In the same way, the servant who had received 2,000 coins earned another 2,000. Notice that second person did not complain at all. Just went and did what was diligent with that. But the servant who had received 1,000 coins went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now, what's really interesting about this story to me is I'm one of three girls. And I've always felt like this story resonated with me because it reminds me of me and my sisters. My sisters taking what they were given and multiplying it. And then I took what I had, and I felt less than them, and so I hid. And I hid it because I felt like I didn't measure up. 19. After a long time, the master of those servants came back and settled accounts with them. The servant who had received 5,000 coins came in, handed over the other 5,000. You gave me 5,000 coins, sir, he said. Look, here are another 5,000 that I have earned. 21. Well done, you good and faithful servant, said his master. You have been faithful in managing small amounts, so I will put you in charge of large amounts. Come on in and share my happiness. So is it really about how much you start out with?
No.
Oh, my life can never look like Pastor Chris because I don't have all the things he has. No, that literally being diligent with what's been given to you will reap a reward of a size you can't even imagine.
True.
It wasn't invite him into his happiness and give him a portion. No, he invited him into all he had. And I lost my place. Here we go. Then the servant, so this is 22. Then the servant who had been given 2,000 coins came in and said, You gave me 2,000 coins, sir. Look, here are another 2,000 that I have earned. Well done, you good and faithful servant, said his master. You have been faithful in managing small amounts, so I will put you in charge of large amounts. Come on in and share my happiness. Notice, no, the first two said nothing negative, nothing. Then the servant who had received 1,000 coins came in and said, Sir, I know you are a hard man. Ooh, no. You reap harvest where you did not plant, and you gather crops where you did not scatter seed. I was afraid, so I went off and hid money in the ground. Look, here is what belongs to you. Ooh, sounds like me quite a few years ago. It's not good. Don't go there. You bad and lazy servant, his master said. You knew. I just skipped his place. Sorry. You knew, did you, that I reap harvests where I did not plant, and that gather crops where I did not scatter seed. Well then, you should have deposited my money in the bank, and I would have received it all back with interest when I returned. Now take the money away from him and give it to the one who has 10,000 coins. For to every person who has something even more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But the person who has nothing, even the little that he has, will be taken away from him. As for this useless servant, throw him outside in the darkness. There he will cry and gnash his teeth. Ooh. Not good. Let me tell you something. I've cried in the darkness and gnashed my teeth. It's not a place you want to live. And if you want to turn around and tear people apart for what they have been given by God and diligently cultivated, and you want to ridicule that they have more than you, that's where you're going to find yourself. Have you ever found yourself crying and gnashing your teeth in the darkness and felt like you're a victim? get your tongue under control. I'm telling you, get your tongue under control. And be diligent with this, whatever God gave you, even if it's nothing compared to what he's given other people. That's like me complaining because I don't have as much as Bill Gates. What good does that do? I don't want to be that guy. Forget it. I have my own Bill. For Mother's Day, he's sending me away to this really ritzy spa by myself to write my books, and I'm really excited about it. Let me tell you something. Struggle is struggle. Whether people struggle as much as you or less than you, drowning in 2 feet of water is the same as drowning in 20 feet. Doesn't matter how deep the pain goes, drowning is drowning. Don't compare your pain to other people's pain. Don't be like, well, they weren't in as much pain as me growing up. They don't understand. Well, hogwash. Drowning is drowning. I love this quote. This is the quote that I live by. I'm a very harsh critic of myself. Actually, it's kind of bad. To the degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth he can accept about himself without running. What truth can you swallow about yourself without running away? Without feeling so much shame? You know, buffaloes are my favorite animal now. When a storm comes, they run into the storm to get out of it quicker. If you run away from the storm, it just follows you and you stay in it a long time. Whereas the buffalo turn and they run right into it. This has been my motto in life. When I'm afraid, I'm like the buffalo, man. I'm going in the storm. We're going to get out of this quicker. I used to be so afraid of flying. And finally, one day I was sitting on the plane. My boys were so little, Bill, and I was like, I am not going to live this way. I'm not living this way. So I was like the buffalo, and I turned into the storm. And I closed my eyes, and I pictured the plane was going down. It was over. I was holding my boys and Bill, and I said, I love you all. I'll see you on the other side. The spirit of fear of flying left me because I went into the storm and I stopped trying to run away from it. Fear hunts fear. It does not, it's like a bear. It does not like when you aggressively come at it. Don't hide your life away. Fear wants you to hide your life away. That servant with the coins hid what he had. Yeah, it wasn't even his in the first place. Your life is not yours. It is God's. Be diligent with what he's given you. Giving and multiplying what you have. The most amazing story of motherhood in regards to this exact subject, to me, is Moses. His mom, man, wow. Oh my gosh, guys, if I could ever be that kind of a mother. In Exodus 2, you can read about Moses. And Moses was born in a time, you want to complain about how hard your life is? Moses was born when all of his peers were slaughtered. The only reason he survived is because his mom had the spirit of the heavenly mother. He had God's spirit of motherhood on her. And I always feel like the spirit of motherhood creates unique solutions. Really, like the God spirit of motherhood creates unique solutions. Who on earth would, like literally the order from Pharaoh was that they were to throw the babies into the Nile. She didn't go against what Pharaoh said. She just put them in a basket. She is this woman, everybody wants to meet all these famous people in history. I'm like, I want to meet Moses' mom. She was where it's at. So, what kind of wisdom is that? Everybody's babies are being destroyed. This is what I feel like in this generation. People's kids are being destroyed right now. Please take on the spirit of motherhood for your children. Please take on the spirit of motherhood because there's unique solutions in heaven for the slaughter that's happening. And you're living in fear over it when really just engage God about it. And he will help you through how to raise your children right now. Not only did Moses survive, not only did she get to raise her son because they needed someone to nurse, a Hebrew mom to nurse their Hebrew baby, but they paid her. That is a woman. Let's be BFF. Let's just be BFF. This is really wise. So Where was it in? I actually meant to ask you this before about he had the face of an angel. I totally forgot before the service. Where was that?
Hey, babe. That's
My husband, the Bible expert. Acts chapter 7, it talks about coming out of the presence of God and having the face of an angel. Now, angels are less than us. So, what does that mean? Why would you want to have the face of an angel? And I'm going to tell you why you want to have the face of an angel. Have you ever looked up a biblical angel? I wanted to take a picture and put it up, and I thought, well, I don't want to scare people. They're kind of frightening. They're like these feathered creatures with eyes everywhere. And that's it. That's all they are. The face of an angel, let me tell you why you want the face of an angel and why that scripture is so powerful. To me, it actually represents motherhood a little bit to me personally. Angels are messengers from God. Messengers from God, angels, when you have wingspan, you can fly and look at things from all directions. If you have multiple eyes, you can see things from way more places than your two. We are limited by two-sidedness, or single-sidedness really, because it's not like we can even split our eyes like some creatures can. We have singular focus. When you take on the face of an angel, you're taking on a multifaceted focus. You can see things and creative solutions from all kinds of angles. Have you ever talked to my parents about something before, and they give you some insight, and you're like, what? How did you even know that? You're so smart. And they're like, I have the face of an angel. I can see things from multiple angles, And so don't rely on your own vision only. Go before the presence of God with parenting, with your ministries, with your friends, with your relationships with family members, whoever in your business. Take on the face of an angel. Find creative solutions. They are there for you.
true.
Can I have the first slide? This is cross-stitching if you've never done it. This is somebody's first attempt at cross-stitching. This is the back side. Any guesses to what that picture is? I have no idea. The top half kind of looks like a creature. The bottom half, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of Pokemon character. I don't know. It's you look at it, and the more you look at it, the more confusing it gets. And this is life without the Spirit. Your life is absolutely a mess. You feel what's the point? Why are we living? Why are we here? I'm just going to raise my kids how it feels. I'm just going to live my life based off of, there we go, off of pleasure. I don't wear heels. This is for you guys. I'm a comfort person, okay? I had some really cute jeans I bought for today, and they were very uncomfortable. And I thought, no, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to wear the comfy pants. The heel, I couldn't give up the heels. But anyway, so this is my life. It's a mess. And you want to go to the second slide? This is more a life with Christ actually looks from the backside. You can see the picture. You can see there's leaves and different things. There's some unnecessary lines. You want to go to the last picture? But the picture in the front, it represents the picture in the front pretty well. But there's some extra lines. So walking things out in the Spirit, learning how to walk things out in the Spirit as a parent, as a spirit of a mother, you might take some extra steps. You might make some mistakes. And God might very painfully have to snip some things that are out of order. If you make a crochet and you only look at the backside, you'll only be devastated by what you see. Yeah. Your life will be meaningless. Actually, as mothers, we tend to sit in our house, in our life, our messy house, our kids are going crazy, they're disobeying, they're all of these things, and you're making decisions looking at the backside of your cross stitch. Yeah. Or in ministry. As fathers, that is living life. Looking at the backside, looking at the stress of the day-to-day, the mayhem of the day-to-day. You should never make decisions based off of looking at the back. Said, we only should look at the face. What do I want my children to look like? What do I want my reputation at work to be like? What do I want my ministry to represent? And make decisions in that. Yeah. Don't make the decision in the pain of the day-to-day, because you will make the wrong decision, and your life will not look like anything from either side. And Proverbs 22:6 says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." They will not.
That's good.
So, as a parent, are you just going to dump an Olympic-sized pool on them every once in a while and expect a good outcome?
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You have to turn on the trickle for their life. If a baby is born, and that baby comes out of the mom, fresh, couple seconds old, and you're acting like the giraffe, kicking the mom and kicking the baby because the baby's not walking instantaneously. No. Does that mean you've failed? Absolutely not, because that is not the appropriate thing in the appropriate season. That baby works on small muscles every day, every moment, and acquires walking at 1 year old. It took a year of diligent movement to acquire to walk, and then another year before they can start running without falling on the ground. So when you look at your life, and like I said, motherhood, fatherhood, business, own your own business, work for somebody, church ministry, just regular everyday life, just you who you are. Stop jumping Olympic-sized pools on your life. Turn on the trickle. Actually, one of the most, I was a terrible cleaner. Just, oh my gosh, if you didn't give me 2 weeks notice before you were coming over, it wasn't good. But you know what? When this revelation really hit me about the trickle, I thought, okay, I'm done with this all or nothing thinking. It's either perfectly clean or trashed. And I turned on the trickle, and I looked at my mess of my house, and I thought, what about this mess bothers me the most? I had to retrain my brain. And I literally was like, oh, this garbage all over is really what's bringing me down. And I would go clean up the garbage, and I'd force myself to sit down. Because I was such an all-or-nothing person, I literally had to retrain myself on how to clean. Because I was so overwhelmed by cleaning because I thought I had to do it all. And once I trained my brain, I retrained my brain. Now my husband and I have 2 Airbnbs that we clean all of the time. Did not know what I was setting myself up for. But I have friends that are having me come over and deep clean their houses.
Yeah.
Me? My mom. My mom's like, can you come deep clean for me? I'm like, you're called Christy, right? The one who loved a trashed bedroom my whole life. But the trickle, I didn't even start that long ago. The trickle, I didn't even start long ago. But I turned a trickle on 7 years ago. And now, every time I add a little more water, it's more powerful. It moves quicker. I overcome things so much faster now since I turned on the trickle 7 years ago. Oh, wow, we are going late here. Okay. So, in parenthood, in life, as a mother, turning on the trickle, people tend to do 2 extremes. They live in natural wisdom, and they live in spirit wisdom. And people get really caught up in these 2 forms of wisdom separately. But really, like the song was saying, where heaven meets earth, that's where we live. We don't only live in heavenly places right now. We live where the sloppy wet kiss meets. So actually, it's equal balance of faith and wisdom is where we meet. That's the only place you're going to succeed in your business, in your friendships, in your children, in ministry, is learning what does wisdom say and what does the Spirit say. And I'm going to live in that constant state all the time because that's where you have to recognize where you abide in life. We want to abide only in faith or only in wisdom. But that's not where we live. We live where heaven and earth kiss right now. Today's UWC Kids lesson. Sometimes when I write my lessons, I write all of our lessons for Sunday school. Sometimes some of the lessons I'm like, wow, I feel like this lesson is actually for the parents. But living where faith and wisdom meet, with raising children, for instance, is today's lesson. Today's lesson is about obedience. You know, the cliche, it's Mother's Day, let's talk about obedience. But you know, one day I was driving with my kids, I was having a really hard time with them, with obedience, and I finally just asked them the question I wish I could have asked an adult when I was younger, or I wish an adult addressed. I said, why do you think you have to listen to me? Because that's what's going to come at them when they're teenagers. I don't have to listen to you. So I am all about slamming stuff down before it happens. So it's like, why? I asked them the question. Why do you have to listen to me? Why is it important? And they had no idea. They were like, oh, that's a good question, actually. Maybe I'll just do whatever I want. I don't need to listen to you. And I said, because when you are older and when your faith is on you, and I can't carry your faith anymore, your salvation, you have to be able to carry that and listen to God. Yeah. Your obedience to me only matters because I'm teaching you how to be obedient to God. That's what they're learning about right now. I don't want kids. It's confusing. When you hit teenage years, if you have little kids, start preparing them for teenage years now. Yep. Why? Why do these things matter? Why? Have honest conversations with them. I talk to my kids like they're adults. I don't just say everything, but like in conversation, I want to talk to them because I had to sit in so many services that were not for not for children. And maybe it went over my head at the time, but the seed went in. And then when I got older, when I went through all my trials and tribulation, those seeds just were there. I couldn't get away from them. I couldn't live a life apart from God because there was too many seeds just going in circles in my head. That's why, I love the way my parents raised us because they always told us they only raised us according to what the Bible said. I don't even think my parents one time said, because I said so. I don't say that to my kids. Because when I got older and I hit the rocks of life, I couldn't just be like, well, that's what my parents thought. I had all these, guards that I couldn't fall out of because I couldn't escape truth. I couldn't escape the presence of God in my life that I experienced on a regular basis, and then also the fact that my parents never set up boundaries for us that had anything to do with anything but Scripture. Because I can't escape God. I knew God was real, and then therefore his boundaries were real to me. And so even though I went through trial and tribulation, even if your kids go through trial and tribulation, you're children in faith. If you set up those boundaries correctly, and you immerse them in every opportunity to experience the presence of God, they can't escape. They won't. Raise your children in the way they should go, and they can't escape it. I'm a living testament. Another thing, living between where faith and wisdom meet. Don't keep your children from hardship. Do you know how bad our culture wants to protect children? We're all like, don't let them feel anything. Give them all rewards for playing baseball. Give them all rewards for playing soccer. They're literally trying to, protect everyone so that we never feel anything. We never feel a negative impact. And it seems like wisdom. Because when you're just in the wisdom of the world, why would you want your kids to face things, hard things? Why would you want your children in the faith, to face hardship? You don't. You can't always just bail people out. If somebody is coming to you time and time again for ministry, and you keep having to bail them out, at some point they have to face the hardship of the choices they're making. And it's the wisdom where heaven meets earth. Make all your decisions where faith and wisdom meet. Because wisdom of the world will tell you not to let your kids face hardship if you can avoid it. Don't do that, because then once they're older and they are going to feel hardship no matter what you protected them from, it's going to destroy them. The Bible says, I have not come to bring a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind. I make all my decisions there as a parent. If I am making decisions because I'm fearful, I know that's not where God is. Even if it has all the heavenly wisdom, that's not where God is. Make sure when you're making decisions for your kids, your ministries, your businesses, never make them because you're fearful. It's a quick way to shipwreck your children. So today, as we move forward, and to whatever reason we need to take on the spirit of motherhood, Don't belittle small beginnings. When a woman finds out she's pregnant at about 4 weeks, do we say, oh, it's not a full-grown kid, who cares? Tell me when they're grown. No, we rejoice in the small thing. We rejoice in that little mustard seed that we learned exist. We cry and weep. The day I found out I was pregnant with Lucas, we were moving into my grandparents' house. And I came out of the bedroom because I had been trying to get pregnant for years. The doctor's office had just called me and told me I was pregnant. My mom thought someone died. I was crying so hard. I wept over that mustard seed. Don't belittle small beginnings. Work on moving the pinky before you work on running with your faith. Move your pinky, don't belittle that pinky. When a baby moves, we rejoice because it means things are moving correctly. We're moving correctly in the right direction. So when you see people online who just got saved, just coming into the faith, and they're still like cursing or doing things that your religion is upset by, don't belittle their small beginnings. Rejoice with where they're at. Don't get on there and say, you shouldn't be cursing, that's against the word of God. Every time I see posts like that, I'm like, just can I bunk you upside the head? Stop doing stuff like that. Don't belittle small beginnings. It's a small step. They're not able to run. Don't pick up what you're doing. Just so you know, when you do that to a newborn Christian, you're picking up a newborn baby, setting it on the floor, and go, run. And then that baby slams, and you wonder why they fail. Brain damage. We would never do that. Don't do that to new Christians. So, today, new beginnings, small steps. Rejoice in the small birth that God has given you. Whatever it is in front of you that bothers you the most about yourself, engage God about it and say, what's the smallest thing I can do? Sometimes it's literally waking up every day and just saying, God, can you help me in this area? And that's it. Don't worry about the rest. Just do that diligently every day. Turn the trickle on. I can't even tell you, my last ADHD doctor that I had, you have to be like reevaluated sometimes. He was like, he read my test results and he was like, how did you drive here? It was so bad. I was like literally worse than everyone my age. He was like, literally your brain works worse than 99% of your peers. And other people meet me and they're like, you have ADHD? Now this is a few years ago. And I'm like, I use the terminology to help people. But I'm like, yes, I'm spiritually sensitive. I had trauma. I worked through the trauma. I turned on the trickle. I turned on the diligence. And now people who are meeting me for the first time cannot even believe that that's my diagnosis. Because I will live by the fruits of the Spirit, not by the fruits of the flesh.